Okay, Jeff. Jeff, actually, we are now because we try to be very punctual. We even one minute early today. Hi, guys. We are today for our it's a second angel investor interview. Today's angel is Jeff. Jeff follows Global Kinetics. We will ask all the kind of questions. I'm pretty sure Jeff will explain us what a global kinetic means, and hopefully, well, we won't start right now. We'll have usual 5 minutes little chat about everything. I can see we have more viewers than 2 minutes ago. 2 minutes ago we had none. Now we have 3, and it's gonna grow. I'm pretty sure. So Jeff, where you are now?
I am in San Francisco Bay Area in California.
Yeah, this is prepared one. This is first question. He already knew. Jeff, what the weather is?
The weather today is about 20 degrees centigrade, maybe even a little warmer, 21 or so.
Yeah, it's great. We are here in our studio, and it's not as great weather, but there will be no more prepared questions for Jeff. The rest of the questions are going to be absolutely, well, he doesn't know about them, what spontaneous questions and everything. We get more viewers and people will stay with us. Why we're doing this actually this kind of format? It's a new for us. Why we're doing the idea is to get in a head, not in my head. The idea is to get in a Jeff's head. Jeff is angel investor, or besides many things. Angel investor, sorry, Jeff. I ask everyone, what is angel investor? What is angel for you? Could you explain?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because I do think it means different things to different people. So I guess to me, an angel investor is probably somebody who's had certain level of success in business, really in any business. It doesn't need to be in a specific field. Who has made a certain amount of money that they now have the opportunity to share their experience and a little bit of their wealth to help other entrepreneurs who are interested in creating a successful business as well. And so I think an angel investor, has to have some of those criteria. They have to, of course, have the investment funds to make the investments, but also the experience and the desire to work with other entrepreneurs who are maybe a little bit earlier in their business life cycle, who want to make a successful business. So that's how I would look at it, being an angel investor.
Yeah, it's very nice.
So what would be the difference between angel investor and venture capitalist?
I think a venture capitalist business is investment, and they're managing, in most cases, someone else's money. They're professional investors, whereas an angel investor to me is managing, in most cases, their own money or a family money that they have. And again, it's not so much their profession, it's more of a side adventure that they choose to take on so that they can work and stay connected to, hopefully, innovative entrepreneurs trying to do something fun and exciting.
And how did you actually earn this money that you are now investing? What was your past entrepreneurship path to the angel investor? What was your successes behind?
So it's interesting. I've been a serial entrepreneur for the last, maybe from 1996 until about 2011. So for about 15 years, I was a serial entrepreneur doing many different entrepreneurial businesses. Some were successful and some were failures, and I think every entrepreneur probably has the same. So I was very fortunate that a couple of the successes did very well and helped cover the losses, and so I was able to make some money and save some money. I also have moved in 2011, I moved into the enterprise world, and I was recruited by a very large systems integrator to start their mobility practice, helping companies around the world figure out how to leverage mobile technology in the right ways. There are many ways to do it, but there's some ways that are better than others and how to doing it correctly. So I moved back into the enterprise world for a couple of years, a few years. And then in 2014, at the end of 2014, I decided to return to the entrepreneurial world, and I established Global Kinetics as my company that helps other entrepreneurs, who many of whom are international, who wish to come to the US market, and I work with them to do that. So it's been a very interesting journey for me as an entrepreneur for many, many years, then going back into enterprise for a little bit, and then going back to now working exclusively with startups.
Great. It's really a very rare situation when the person who was an entrepreneur coming back to corporations and then returning back. So it's really cool.
I think going back to the corporation side reminded me why I didn't want to be doing that again. I enjoyed it, but I really realized how much more I enjoy working with startups. And so I don't have any negative reaction to my experience in the enterprise world, but it did remind me just how much I love working with startup companies.
Understand you totally. And what about the biggest successes and failures you have during this huge and very long path?
It's interesting. I do agree that I've had failures. I said I have had failed businesses, but I never look at the failed businesses as failures. I look at them as opportunities to learn what not to do, or to look back at why did the business fail and take those lessons forward into my next business opportunity. And so they were really more successes and lessons is maybe a better way for me to phrase it, versus calling the businesses failures. They were failed businesses, and I'm not shy about admitting that, but I really don't look at them as failures as much as opportunities for me to learn how to do things better going forward and how not to do some things as well. So my biggest failed business, I would say, was actually at the turn of the century, when 1999 was turning into 2000 and the internet market kind of blew up a little bit. I had a software business, and we were developing software that allowed teachers to tutor students. And it was built on Apple QuickTime, Apple QuickTime technology. And we actually had a great partnership with Apple. And then in the course of that business, I was able to meet with Steve Jobs at Apple, and I secured a partnership with Apple and my business. And we thought we were in a very good place. But then when the market started to turn down, we didn't have the financial resources to support the business. And unfortunately, as the kind of 1999 rolled into 2000, we were forced to shut the business down. We just could not afford it anymore. But that was a very exciting business, but it was ultimately a failed business. So it didn't turn out to be a successful one. But it did lead me, and I think this is a good sign of any entrepreneur, to a very opportunistic next adventure, which was that I was meeting with some colleagues of mine who were somewhat mentors to me. And we met in one of the gentlemen's homes in Mexico. And so I traveled to Mexico to kind of spend the weekend and just kind of get his advice and guidance. And there was another colleague, mutual friend of both of ours, who was there. And by the end of that weekend, we decided what my next business was going to be, and they became my partners in the next business. I moved to Mexico, and for 4 years, I built a very high-end luxury beach resort in Mexico. And that was nothing I ever would have imagined doing, but it looked to be a very good business opportunity, and it turned out to be one of my more successful businesses. And it was not planned in any way. It was just, as I said, opportunistic. It came around, and I was able to make some successful business out of it.
I have a follow-up question. Imagine I come to you for money as an investor or as an entrepreneur, and you as an investor. And first thing I do, I tell, look, I've been bankrupt 5 times already. What will you do? Will you still listen to me, or will you say, yeah, just go on?
Say your question again. What have you done 5 times?
Bankrupt. I opened 5 businesses. They all went bankrupt 5 times.
Okay, so the answer to your question is yes. I would still talk with you. As I said, I have had failed businesses. I don't look at them as failures. They are failed businesses, but I know that I learned very, very valuable lessons every time that happened to me. And so I would meet with you and try and understand. I would probably ask you questions about what did you learn in each of those situations that you now carry forward. So I would want to at least understand, I wouldn't have concerns about the failures. I would have more interest to know what you learned from them and how that helps make you a better business person going forward.
Okay, guys who are watching us, if you have failure, it's not a problem. It's not a major problem. The problem if you won't learn anything from your failure.
Anton, I'll actually add to that. I think it would be a problem if a business person came to me and said they've never failed. That would be a problem. Just leave them.
Yeah, I've heard that it's a very different approach in United Kingdom and United States. In United Kingdom, bankruptcy, failure of business is kind of, well, bad thing. I mean, bad in a bad sense. If you've been bankrupt, you probably shouldn't tell anybody, even your wife. Yeah, but United States, if you haven't done anything, you haven't been bankrupt, you have failure, which is basically you don't have any experience.
Yeah, I would say if you haven't failed at something, all you've done is things you're comfortable with. And to me, a good entrepreneur pushes the envelope, pushes the edge, not just do what you're comfortable with, but you have to try and do things that are innovative. And innovative, to me, implies that it's not comfort. You're pushing the edge on something that is beyond the boundaries of your comfort zone and hopefully creating something very compelling from it. So I view it very differently. And in fact, there's an expression that they use very frequently here in Silicon Valley called fail fast. If you're going to fail, fail fast and learn the lesson quicker and then carry that lesson more quickly into your next business opportunity. So to me, failure is not something I look at in any way as a negative, so long as you've taken those lessons and learned something that can help you improve going forward.
Yeah, this is very smart, actually, approach in case you really want the entrepreneurship culture to be in your country, and that's how the US behaves. And what about you personally? You like told us what you what experience you seek in you want to find in people, but what exactly areas are you looking for the projects? What areas and businesses are you looking for to invest in?
So I think that's very different for every angel investor, but you're asking me, and so specifically for me, I look for businesses that I can understand. I wouldn't be very good with medical devices or life sciences, pharmaceutical. Now I have clients in that area, but I don't necessarily make all of my angel investments in areas that I don't have understanding in. I have done that in the past, and it's worked out sometimes and not so fine other times, but I just feel more comfortable when I understand the nature of the business. And secondarily, I really like to make investments in businesses that I can really personally help them in the business. So it's not just a pure investment. I don't make an investment passively, is the way I would describe it. I make more active investments where I can actually help the entrepreneurs by doing the kinds of things that my experience allows me to do, or connecting them to people in my network that are hopefully going to be helpful to the business. So those are definitely areas that I look for. Now, specifically, I look for mobile technology, which is an area I have great experience in. Internet of Things is an area that I also have some experience in. User experience. I love working with people who have a very good understanding of the importance of user experience. That's a little broad. It doesn't really matter what business that's applied to, but I love people who understand that that's so critically important. And I guess other areas that I invest, or other characteristics I look for maybe to invest, is a team that is a really solid team. I'm not overly excited when it's a single entrepreneur. I look more for the team because I think people need other people in order to make things happen. And so if there's a solid team that knows one another, maybe they've worked together before, that's very interesting to me. And then, of course, looking at the size of the market that they're approaching. I need to have an understanding that the market the business is being geared into is a big market, a growing market. Again, I need to make sure I can internally understand the market and believe that it's going to remain a very viable market going forward.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand. Well, it's kind of, well, you're using common sense. If I don't know anything about agriculture, I probably won't be investing my own money in agriculture. Talking about money. So you mentioned that you have several businesses, but not as an investor, as an entrepreneur. Some of them were successful. You got your money. Great. Okay. Could you tell us, only by investment, as an investor, did you make money or did you lose money as an investor?
Purely as an investor, not as an entrepreneur, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to date that so far as an investor, I have made money. I would not say I've made money enough to retire. I've made more money in business than I have made as an investor. I didn't invest in Uber the first day anyone ever heard of them, for example. I don't have any investments like that, but I do have investments that I have made as an angel investor that have been successful and have had exits, just not exits, that are enormous, but they've had very good exits. I've had excellent return on my investments as an angel investor. And I think in part it's gotten better over the years because I do take a more active role. And so I kind of feel like I have a little bit more ability to influence the opportunity rather than just handing an entrepreneur a check and hoping they do good things with it. So I think my active style of being an angel investor works better for me than being just a passive investor, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. How do you seek the teams? How do you search for the new startups? Or you prefer them to search for you?
So it's very interesting. I have never had to go searching for startups who are in need of money. They somehow find me, which is a good thing, I guess. It shows a certain level of proactivity and research on their parts. I give credit for that. I also work extensively in the startup community. So I mentor for many of the startup accelerators across Silicon Valley. I am president and managing partner of my own accelerator. We have over 45 companies in my accelerator. And in my business of Global Kinetics, I work with startups who are generally coming to the United States. Some of my clients in my Global Kinetics business are US based, but they want to expand. So I end up just working with lots and lots of startups, and then I figure out which ones feel the most appropriate for me to consider an investment in. So I've never really had to go looking for investments, actually.
And how do they find you? What is the best way to reach you out? Is it LinkedIn, letter, or email, or something? What is the best channel to reach you?
Definitely for me, LinkedIn is the best channel. There's no, and I get probably between 6 and 10 requests a day on LinkedIn, every day. So there's no shortage of people, that find me that way.
And you press just yes for everyone, or how do you do it?
I may be a little bit different than a lot of people in what I'm about to say, but I actually respond to every message that I receive. I don't ignore any message. I don't just delete them. I actually respond. If someone asks if I'm interested in making an investment and they share the business plan or the executive summary with me, I will have a quick look at it. And if it's an area I'm interested in, I'll ask for more information. If it's an area that I know I have no interest in, I will let them know that this is not an area where I focus my investments. So I am very responsive to those requests because I just think it's a decency and a human courtesy. I know if I send someone a message, I would at least desire the respect of a response. And so I wish that I should be the same way that I would want someone else to be. So I do respond to every one of them. It's not easy to do that, and many of my colleagues don't do that. But I do think it's a good way to be, and it just takes a lot of time.
And that's actually how we get the Jeff on our interview via LinkedIn. So this is very true that you respond to everybody actually, because we were never met before. And thank you for that. This is very, very helpful for us to understand the investors market. And you mentioned before that you are interested in global projects as well. What part of the world are you now investigating mostly? And what countries do you prefer to search for the startups? And what are the differences between different countries?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't really have a particular region of the world that's I'm more focused on. In fact, both as an investor, I have interests in helping identify companies in other regions of the world that could become very, successful companies, and maybe need some help, and maybe need some connections in Silicon Valley, Bay Area. So I specifically have that as an objective of mine, is to find those companies around the world, wherever they are, doesn't matter to me, that have good, potentially global potential. So that's kind of my characteristic. Now, I also have, I do training for startups for many other countries around the world. I go into various countries around the world and work. Generally, it's through government, but it's not always through government. But oftentimes it's for governments that are trying to spur innovation and growth of technology in their countries and in the startup communities within their own countries. And so I do training for such programs. We actually have programs that go to each of these countries and do training. So I've recently been to Korea, and we've done trainings in South Korea for South Korean entrepreneurs that wish to have some connections to Silicon Valley. I've had a group of my colleagues. I was not able to personally go to this one, but my group of colleagues just recently returned from the Republic of Georgia. They were in Tbilisi, not far from where Kiev is, obviously. So I work in Eastern Europe, I work in Asia, I work in Latin America quite extensively. I do a lot of business in South and Latin America. For me, I never know where the next great idea is going to come from. So I think it would be too limiting if I just focused on one particular region. But I do have ongoing dialogue right now, specifically with several Eastern European countries around these training programs. So Eastern Europe does feel to me like an area that has a lot of enthusiasm for doing those kinds of programs, but not exclusively.
When you say about training programs, what exactly? Well, I understand training of, for example, PHP developer. So he trained in this, or C++ programmer, or something else. What is stepped up training? Could you? I just have no idea what you train stepped up for.
Let me describe to you how we go about these trainings. So we generally put out a request for startup companies, and we give a certain criteria of the kinds of companies, maybe the location of the companies where they are located. And what we are doing in the last program, for example, we had over 450 applicants that wanted to get startup training from a group of Silicon Valley mentors, advisors, whatever you want to call us, the team of us that go to these places. And so we filtered that down to the top 50, and then we sent a team of executives and mentors here from Silicon Valley to that country. And for 1 week, we did daily training sessions for several hours throughout the day. And much of it was revolving around their presentation, their pitch, if you will, of their business to this group of Silicon Valley people. And we helped them get their pitch better throughout the week. During the week, we would improve and give them feedback and show them ways that Silicon Valley investors generally look for certain things in the pitch deck. And so we helped them get better and better during the week. And then at the end of the week, we sent a team of venture capitalists from Silicon Valley, professional investors, over to that country. And they then pitched to this group of investors. And the top 50 were then filtered down to the top 20. And so now, these 20, for the months of, this was during September that we did this training program. Then during the months of October, November, and December, we are doing remote mentoring with Silicon Valley mentors, providing, like we're doing here over Google Hangout, we're providing this kind of remote mentoring for the top 20. And then for 3 months, and then in January, we will filter down to the top 5. And the top 5 will be flown over to Silicon Valley for 2 weeks. And they will spend 2 weeks here in Silicon Valley being introduced to professional investors, maybe some prospective clients or partners.
Yeah,
so that's what I mean when we talk about a training program.
Yeah, it sounds like X Factor or something for startups. I have a question: who's paying for it? Is it pro bono from your side, or is government paying for it, or what?
Generally speaking, it's sponsored by a government of the local countries, or some non-governmental agencies that are working closely, like quasi-government, like almost like government agencies, but not formally. In some cases, we have had these sponsored by venture capital firms that are global. Some venture capital investors that want to find those right, the next best company, the next Uber or the next Google in a foreign country. And so they pay for bringing these training programs from Silicon Valley to help identify those companies, with the idea, hopefully, to maybe bring them to Silicon Valley and help them, grow and become that next great company.
Great. It sounds like an amazing program. We hope to get it in Ukraine as well. And I've asked you before about the differences you've noticed, that you probably could notice, between the different startup communities all over the world. Can you just probably share with us your opinion between the differences between the US startup community and, for example, Georgia or Czech Republic or Korean startup communities?
Yeah, I think it actually goes a little bit back to our discussion earlier on failure. Here in the US, failure is, I don't want to say people wear it as a badge of honor, but they're not embarrassed by it. People realize that you learn something from failure, and that's actually a very positive experience after the failure. It's terribly the failure, but it's positive because you can learn something that you can carry forward. I think along those same lines, I notice when I deal with international companies, whether it's in Eastern Europe or Asia, people tend to be less open and less willing to share the details of their businesses. They're much more protective of the ideas, the details of the ideas. They'll share at a certain level, but they get a little more hesitant to share at a more detailed level. And so it takes us some time, even during our training programs, to kind of break through and help them to know that they need to share more detail. I understand it's more like intellectual property. In the US, we have patents and protections. Of course, these are global things, not just in the US, but these are very common things, and people can file a patent and have the kind of protection. You can sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that also protect, so that you can share very openly as much detail as required, and then have the comfort and confidence that that information will not be mistreated or misused. So we have seen hesitation on the side of some of the international groups that we deal with. I think they're more concerned about giving up the idea, and that someone may take their idea and do something with it and leave them behind. And so that's definitely something that we try to break through in the early part of our training, is to help them understand we're willing to sign NDAs and we're willing to protect their details, but we can better help them if they share more details with us. So that's definitely one observation I would say I've seen globally.
Okay, can I ask you about this global kinetics? Yeah, I've read it a little bit, what you have on your website, familiar phrases of co-founder. I understand it's an intermediate, it's not investment company, and it's not an entrepreneur, it's between. So you basically prepare somebody to be investable. Is it correct assumption of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that's a very good say. I help them to be investable, understanding what the mindset of investors, whether it's angel venture capital, professional institutional investors, or corporate venture capital, kind of corporate strategic investors. So I help them to understand where the various investment opportunities are, and then I try to help them get to the right people. The biggest thing I tell all the clients within Global Kinetics is you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you can't, one, communicate it well, and two, communicate it to the right people, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to go very far. And so I try to help them figure out how to communicate their idea as best as can be done, and then help them get in front of the right people in the right companies so that they can communicate it to the right people and hopefully get the opportunities that they're seeking. That's really what I do, but it is a big part of it is making them invest, helping to make them more easily investable. And I do invest, by the way. Global Kinetics is not an investment company, but I do actually selectively invest in my clients' companies. Once we get to know each other, and if I believe in the opportunity and I see that they're willing to take advice and be coachable, another very important characteristic to any investor is to find people who are willing to take advice and not be very rigid in their own views. Once I spend a few months working with some of my clients, I have been able to make investments into their companies.
Yes, very ethical, but what about some of your clients who you, for some reason, you won't invest? So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, you're taking some guy, you kind of reshape him so he looks much better, and after that you're putting them in front of people who knows you and your reputation, and they're probably very open-minded to invest. They invest, you got cut off investment, probably, I don't know what's your business model, and after that they are on their own. So you basically have no responsibility. Well, obviously your reputation is there, but well, failure is not a big deal, of course. Is it correct assumption, will be?
So it's interesting. There are some clients, as I said, that I make investments in, and other clients that I have not chosen to make investments in. I think it is determined by a number of different factors. I don't ever tell my prospective clients that if they join me, I'll make an investment. I tell them that I make selective investments depending on a variety of things, how much investment I have available to make at certain times. Sometimes I have less, sometimes I have more. Sometimes I have a better connection with the entrepreneurs and the team, and I feel like there's really quite a bit I can do to help them. Sometimes they're unable to raise more capital, and my capital won't be enough capital to sustain them. So if I don't see the opportunity for them to raise more capital than what I might invest, that might also hold me back from making an investment, because they'll need more than what I would be able to put in. So I think it varies, but none of my clients have the expectation that I will be making an investment. I always say that it's just a possibility.
And what about how to choose the investor, actually? Because you, as a startup advisor, both and the investor, should help startups to find the right investor. And this is a very crucial for startups, especially on early stages and later, to find the person and the money who will really help them to raise business. What are the main criteria, for your opinion, of this smart money, or probably? How do you call them?
Yeah, no, I think smart money, to me, smart money is finding investors that can do more than just give you money. Smart money means it's money plus introductions, plus experience, plus help. There's many more things than just the cash. Cash is great, and it pays bills. But if you're looking for an investor, I would always encourage people, look for an investor that can do more than just write you a check. That's only a piece of the value you can receive from an investor. So that's what I would define as smart money, is finding investors that have those characteristics. I think, for me, the objective is to understand the business of my clients, which we, of course, over a period of time, hopefully not too long of a period of time, I get to understand significantly more about their business than I do in the beginning. Understanding the opportunity in my own network for the business of my clients, so that maybe there are people within my network that would be very interesting to know about this client's company or their business or their offering, and including not just companies that would have interest as maybe clients or as partners, but also looking within my network of the investors, whether it's angel investors or professional venture investors. Depending on what stage the business is at, I try to introduce them to those correct investors that at least I perceive are the right investors. They certainly don't always turn out to make investments after I make introductions. They make their own assessments and have their own criteria. But I just try to make sure that I can get my clients in front of the investors that I think have the highest chance of being interested to become an investor with them, or the companies that would be most benefited by partnering or using the business's offering.
Okay, got you. And what about the building the relations between the startup and the investor? Are there some receipts that you have or advices that you have to startups how to build appropriate relations with investors that currently invested in the company?
Yeah, I guess, relationship building is a very personal thing. Everybody builds their own relationships their way. But what I always tell my clients is I am not the kind of advisor that will simply send an email between you and someone else in my network and say, hey, you should meet. It'll be a great meeting. I actually participate in the meetings, and I take my clients to the meetings, and we sit in the meetings together. And that way it's easier because generally speaking, the individuals that are I'm connecting them to are people I know, or people who were referred to me from people I know. And so there's a little bit of a closer connection in most cases between me and that other person than my client and that person. But once I make that initial introduction, I tend to be very happy to get out of the way. It's never my intention to be in between my clients and the people I introduce them to. I encourage them always to keep me as involved as they feel is best or as necessary, but not feel the obligation to keep me involved. Once I make that introduction and connection, I feel as though it's up to them to take that relationship forward between them without having to use me as the in-between. So I'm always encouraging my clients to build those relationships directly once I help make that initial connection for them.
I got you, but probably I want to rephrase the question. There are certain ways to build the effective relations between the investor and the startup after they take the money, because it's very important that the marriage you created between the investor and the startup should be successful, actually, for both of the sides. Do you have any advices on how to build this marriage successful?
I understand your question better now, though. Okay, so more specifically to the question you're asking, I am extremely open and very honest, whether it's good news or bad news. People always know they get responses from me. I encourage all of my clients, if you have bad news, tell your investor. Telling them earlier is better than telling them later. You want to tell them when it's less critical and less bad than when it gets worse. And so I'm a big believer in sharing good news, bad news, whatever the news is, very routinely. So I would encourage them to either create a standard kind of update email template that they use to update them on various things going on in the business, various needs they may have, various connections they're seeking to either make or have made, and what the progress is. So some level of a progress report that I encourage them to provide investors, partners, it doesn't really matter who it is, but maybe there's one for each of the different stakeholders. You might have an update for an investor, you might have an update for a partner, but you should always keep all of your stakeholders as up to date and as current in the happenings of the business as you can. I think that's a very endearing quality. Like if I'm an investor, I appreciate when I get updates from the companies I've invested in, because it keeps me informed, and it allows me an opportunity to read an update and say, oh, you're looking for a connection over here. I have one. Let me come back and help you. And so I think it's only through that very open and back and forth communication that they can build that kind of relationship, that honesty, and that kind of friendliness beyond just being business partners as an investor in a business that you've been invested in. I think it's good to create that kind of relationship that's a more personal one versus just a pure business one.
Not every business needs investment. Well, I don't know if you agree with me. Some business, well, some startups probably will be better off just doing it organically, going slowly, reinvesting a profit if they have profit, and always would not have an obligation, because investment is a big obligation, isn't it? It's not only money. Unfortunately, if you invest in my startup, I'm not going to go buy Ferrari. I wish I could buy Ferrari and go on, but it's not about that. So it's a responsibility. Not everyone wants to have a shareholder just sitting here and asking him questions. Maybe some businesses would do much better without, and some businesses they do. If you agree with me, have you ever advised this way? You look at the startup and you think, well, he would be better off without actually any investment. He's kind of just it's a fashionable, obviously, to get investments, to get IPO and everything, and it looks like it's a great amount of money and everything, but it's a responsibility. Have you ever advised like that? I mean, and a good idea, not the idea is shit, and they said, no, it's uninvestable.
So I completely agree with you that not every business should require investment. And I tell every company that's seeking to raise money, if you need money, find as few investors as possible, because investors are an obligation, and you do have the responsibility to communicate and manage your investors in a proper way, and respect that they have interests in the business once they become investors. So if there are businesses that can sustain themselves through organic growth, that very well could be the best path for them. They should probably not require, in all cases, external investors. To me, investors can serve different purposes. Some is to fund the development of an idea and the validation of an idea, and others is simply to scale. I mean, sometimes organic growth is a slower path, and if you wish to accelerate that path, you've already got a validated concept, it's working, it's generating revenue, and you can pay the bills and pay all your employees and everybody's happy. But if you want to grow bigger and you realize that there are some competitors coming into the market, you may want to take an investment so you can grow bigger faster. And that way you can protect the market, like a first mover advantage, right? If you get the market first, it's going to be yours to defend rather than having to go fight someone else to take business away from them. So it depends on the needs for the capital, but I completely agree not all businesses should take external investors' money in. It's definitely true.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I just wanted to ask, there are two different opinions about the outsourcing for startups. Because some part of the investors thinks that if startup should be lean, and then outsourcing is a good way. But some other investors are thinking, okay, I'm giving them money and they are throwing them to other team and they are not building their own expertise, and this is risk. What is your opinion actually?
I think both have their role. I think the way I would describe what you just said to me is keep everything that is a core fundamental competency requirement for your business inside, outsource everything else if necessary. So it's build the core thing that you need, whether it's a piece of technology, a piece of intellectual property, whatever it is. Keep the kind of the secret sauce, if you will, internal, and outsource the things you don't need to do internally. I outsource things, not everything, but I outsource things because there are people better suited than me and my team to do them.
What things do you outsource?
What things do I outsource? So I outsource some of my graphics work when I create presentations. I'm good at ideas of what a presentation should say. I'm terrible about how to make it look good. So I have a team that I use actually out of Pakistan. There's a group I use out of Pakistan. They do a wonderful job. I send them a PowerPoint that is extremely ugly. They send me back a beautiful one. And it's very reasonably priced. They're very fast and efficient. They're way better at it than I will ever be in my entire life. I outsource coding. I have teams that I use for coding. I have a team here in the United States that I've used for many, many years. And I know when I give them a project, I don't ever have to go back. It'll just get done beautifully. They know me. We've worked together for many years. We have a very, very great workmanship. And friendship now is developed over the many years we've worked together. So I know I could probably get outsourced coding cheaper than I pay here in the US, but I know the quality, and guaranteed knowing that quality is such a value. It's such a life-saving thing to me. I don't ever have to think about anything. I just know if I give it to them, it'll get done right, and it'll get done right the first time. I don't have to redo it. I don't have time zone issues. I don't have communication challenges. Everything is just easy, and I'm willing to pay a premium for all of those things. I do have other teams that I use for coding as well in Europe, European markets. I've worked with groups also in Eastern Europe. In Poland, I have worked with some teams in Poland. I have worked with some teams in Scotland. I've worked with teams in India. So I really spread the development out as needed. But I never fear outsourcing things. I think it's a great way to leverage your own time. Even whether you're an individual or a business entire business. I think do what you're really good at and let other people do what they're really good at that you have needs for. That's my view of it.
What about SEO for your web page? Do you do it yourself? SEO, search engine optimization for your page?
Yeah, I have a group that helps me a little bit with it, but honestly, it is not a big focus for me, probably because it's not something I know a lot about. I mean, I'm familiar with it, but it's not been a big focus for me.
We should tell you. We should really have the same conversation, but not on the opposite side.
Very good. Fair enough.
So, if to say about the marketing approach to work with marketing teams, do your teams work with the agencies or with internal specialists? And in what situations you use the different ways?
So one of the other groups I guess I outsource work to, I have a marketing team here in the Silicon Valley Bay Area. They have offices elsewhere in the world, but their main offices are here. And I hire, most of the people I outsource work to, by the way, I hired at one point as a contractor to do business for me. And then they became just so good at what they did, and I developed such a trusting relationship with them that I now use them as outsourcing partners for many of my clients. So if my clients have development needs, I introduce them to my team. If they have marketing, specific to the question you asked, I do have a marketing team that can handle the traditional kind of PR, public relations type of marketing, marketing strategy, messaging, architecture. They also can handle social media marketing, content marketing, event marketing. So it's nice to have a team that I have such a trusting relationship with that can cover so many of these different areas for all of my clients. So all of my clients being startups, sometimes they have some needs and have great skills internally to cover other needs. So it really depends on each situation where their needs are, and that is kind of what dictates the introductions that I will make for them with respect to service providers.
It's great that it is a good approach for startups to have an outsourcing of marketing, that you support this like thought as well as we. And what about the actually approach or advice you will give to the early stage startup or early stage entrepreneur who is now at the beginning of his path to a big success or a big not success, a big lesson? What three main things they should be focused on your opinion?
So it's interesting. I know it changes over time. Back when I was an entrepreneur many years ago, the focus from investors was, don't worry about revenue, just go get users. And they didn't care about kind of what I would call traditional business metrics, like revenue and costs. They just said, don't worry, we'll invest more, just go get users. And it was more about building the user base. Nowadays, I think it's different. I think proving the business or that there's a market for whatever it is you're creating. I don't care if it's a technology. I don't care if you're writing a book. I don't care if you're creating a stuffed animal as a toy. Whatever it is, you have to prove that there's a market that's willing to pay a profitable price for your solution, your offering, whatever your offering is. And so I'm a big believer in demonstrating that market validation is there. That's a very important kind of box to check as an early entrepreneur, is go do the homework and prove that there's a valid market for what you're creating or trying to create. It can still be at the conceptual level when you're very early, but you still have to go do that homework and figure out that there's actually a very viable and valid market for the thing you're trying to create. That's very important. Secondarily, I think getting traction with clients or the types of companies that would be your clients very early is very important. It's okay to have a friendly client or two, people you know who just did it because they know you, but you also have to have some interest demonstrated for me to be interested and enthusiastic from companies that don't know you. And so that those are companies that are demonstrating that they believe in the value that the thing you're creating is providing for them. And then secondarily, it has to be proven that there's a willingness to pay for it, and not just once. I think it's fairly easy to get somebody to buy something from you once if you're a good salesperson. But if they buy it again, so think about a recurring revenue model. If they'll pay for it one time, that means you convince them to buy it. But if they pay for it again, that means they're convinced it's producing value for them. And that's a very important thing to me for early stage companies, is to have that mindset. You may not have that thing done yet, but you have to have the mindset that that's what you should be striving for. That's the important thing to me that early stage companies need to understand, from my perspective.
And how to actually do this, how to make this happen, because everybody really wants to track either somebody will pay for their thing or not, but it is very hard actually. The research is expensive and the traffic is also pretty expensive. So do you have any tricks and tips on how to really test the model on real users, either they pay or not?
I actually think, you said research is expensive. I would challenge that a little bit. I think there are ways to leverage the internet and other technologies that exist nowadays. Even things like SurveyMonkey. You can just go create a quick survey, get it out to people. It's easy over groups like LinkedIn or other social media channels to ask a question or two. And it should require you, it's easy to ask 20 questions. It's hard to ask the right 1 or 2 questions. And so if you actually do the homework and come up with the right 1 or 2 questions, which if you got enough people to answer, will it really shed some light for you and give you some insight? I don't think it's very costly. I think it's maybe a little, it's not easy, but it may be a little challenging, but I think it can be very inexpensive and relatively easy to execute if you can come up with that. So I think doing that research is really critical. I also think leverage anyone and everyone in your network and ask people in your network to refer you. You have to be able to do that. If you can't sell your own product yourself, don't expect anyone else to be able to do it. So you have to be willing to go out there and probably push your own comfort level in asking people. And I'm never afraid of asking someone, hey, will you just do me a favor and try this? Give me, a little bit of time. And usually if it's someone that knows me and they trust and have belief in who I am, someone in my network will be willing to try it. And if they try it and they give me feedback, I might ask them, hey, that's great. Do you know anyone else in your network who you can ask to try it? And so I try to be very, aggressive in getting a few people to touch and use my product and give me that really valuable feedback, because it's feedback that you'll get from those opportunities that's going to really drive the future. You will never be able to sit in an office and build the exact perfect product if you don't do something in talking to the users that are going to be using your product.
That's very, very comprehensive answer. Thank you. And Anton,
Sure.
Do you have any answers? Questions, actually.
I have plenty of answers. I don't have questions about making 1 hour. I guess it's all we have for today. Tonight depends where you are. You mentioned Pakistan. We have plenty of audience in Pakistan. Even major part is still in the United States. Well, money is in the United States. We know that. Thank you very much, Jeff. And guys, if you have some great ideas, especially in technology, mobile technology, everything, Jeff Wallace is your name. Global Kinetics, you can Google it, or you can go to our landing page of this particular event and find everything, or even write a comment or anything else. Jeff promised to answer everybody. We're trying to make his life difficult. So we're trying to make your life difficult, so you'll get plenty of comments and you won't be able to answer. Oh, he will be, I'm pretty sure. So thank you very much who were with us today. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anton.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, okay, guys. We have Jeff Wallace for today. Maybe we'll have him in a few months.
In Kiev, actually, in a few months. I've heard he wanted to go to the Eastern Europe again.
Yeah, okay.
Not only do I really have interest in coming to Kiev, but I did share with you when we first spoke, Kate, both my wife and my own heritage is from Ukraine. So I would absolutely love to be able to visit. I've never had the good opportunity to visit the Ukraine yet. It's not one of my countries I've yet gotten to visit, but I have high hopes of being there And if I can do something to help some entrepreneurs and startups that are there while I'm visiting, all the better.
We are just working on your presentation about the coaching to the startups, to one of the investing funds, so we are working on it.
Okay,
wonderful,
guys.
wonderful.
You all who watch us tonight, today, the morning, the morning, like Jeff was. We're in the Bay Area. Thank you very much, and goodbye. We'll see you again very soon with different stuff. Thank you, and
thank you.